situation. Always trust your gut.
Hello, my name is Chrissy Champagne. You are listening to Residue, a true crime podcast dedicated to keeping you paranoid. Residue is not just another true crime podcast, but a necessary tool for those who want to understand the dangers lurking in the real world. Residue is created, hosted, edited, researched, and produced by me, Chrissy Champagne. Before we get started with today's episode, I just wanted to remind you that you can follow me on Instagram at Residue Podcast, Facebook, Residue A True Crime Podcast, and TikTok, Residue A True Crime Pod. And also, do not forget to hit that I will follow you, 'cause I'm under your spell, 'cause you can't throw me to the flames button. Oh my God, that one was really difficult. Did you guys know I used to be in a band? And now I'm not anymore, as you can see why. Anyway, yeah, and the other greatest thing you can do for any podcast that you love is leave a 5-star review, just to let us know that you're really digging what we're laying down. As always, I do have to warn you that listener discretion is advised, and today especially, it's going to get a little gnarly, but this is a survivor story today because I thought that we needed a little break. We are talking about Teka Adams, the most badass mother you will ever hear about. Fetal abduction, sometimes called cesarean kidnapping, refers to the rare crime of kidnapping a full-term pregnant woman and performing a manual, often crude, extraction of the fetus. These crimes are extremely rare, but profoundly shocking when they occur. In the U.S., the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children recorded approximately 18 cases of fetal abduction from 1983 to 2015, and this is representing only 6% of all recorded infant abductions. This is a rare crime. By one count, only about 4 mothers have ever survived. More often, both mother and child tragically die. December 2009, Washington, D.C., Teka Adams was 9 months pregnant and doing everything she could to rebuild her life. She'd come off the streets, found shelter, and found love. But one decision, trusting the wrong stranger, nearly cost her everything. This is the story of Teka Adams, a woman who endured the unimaginable and lived to tell the truth. At 29 years old, Teka was ready to make a change. She had faced homelessness, instability, and uncertainty, but she didn't give up. She entered a shelter in Washington, D.C., determined to build a better life for herself, and she met her future husband there. His name was PJ. He was a kind, grounded man who quickly became her partner and then her husband. For the first time in a long time, Teka had hope. Teka admits that when she was young, she was rebellious. She didn't want rules, but she hit some rough spots while on the streets, and that's when she decided to get her life together. And at this point, everything seems to be going perfectly. So nearing the end of her pregnancy, Teka starts receiving these phone calls from a woman who called herself Stephanie Mills. And this woman claimed that she worked for a program that helped expectant mothers in need. This woman said that she had this huge storage area. They offer baby clothes, car seats, diapers, anything, you name it. You can come to this storage area, choose whatever you need. And Teka's like over the moon excited. She thinks this is the luckiest thing that has ever happened to her. And her husband, PJ, is like, whoa, let's back that up a minute, girl, because I don't think that this is a good idea. And I'm with PJ. I would have been full on, no, I don't know you. I've heard way too many stories, but I am a true crime podcaster. So PJ says, I don't want you to go, babe. And Teka decides to go without letting PJ know. One day, she's outside of the shelter. Stephanie Mills pulls up in her car and Teka gets in. So this Stephanie lady seems friendly as can be. She's about 35 years old. She's talkative. Stephanie is asking Teka all about her pregnancy, and Teka is sharing in her excitement about how she gets to pick out all these new clothes for her baby. Stephanie mentions that they're going to have to stop at her apartment first, and they get to Stephanie's apartment complex. They go up to hers, and she tells Teka, well, why don't you go take a seat in my bedroom? And now Teka does notice that it seemed a little odd that the bedroom seemed unfinished. Like it wasn't fully set up yet. And there was a quilt, a heavy comforter type of quilt laying on the bed. You know, Teka feels like there's something a little bit off, but she is excited about this promise of help. And then PJ calls Teka's phone. He's like, where the hell are you? And she admits to PJ on the phone that she doesn't really know exactly where she is. And this is when things turned dark. Now, she hangs up the phone with PJ, and that quilt that was laying on the bed is all of a sudden over Teka's head. She can't see, she doesn't know what's happening, and all she can feel is just Stephanie pummeling her, hitting her over and over. She says she counted at least 10 times just being bashed in the head. The whole time this is happening, the movie Precious is playing in the background, and Teka is just thinking, I gotta get out of here. I gotta fight back. Teka jumps up and she tries to fight back as hard as she could, but all she could see was blood. And she starts to feel like her head is pounding. She's getting really dizzy, and she knows that she just has to get out of this apartment. That is goal number one for her right now. So she gets up, she's running. She gets to the front door and notices that there are 3 different locks on this front door, and there is no way. As she's trying to just figure out these locks with this pounding headache and blood dripping down her face, Stephanie, this 216-pound woman full of muscle, just comes barreling at Teka. Teka's 9 months pregnant, and she gets Teka, grabs her, and they both just start wrestling. They are fighting for their lives right now. Stephanie gets on top of Teka. She's got her hands wrapped around her neck. She is just trying so hard to choke the life out of Teka, but she's finding it difficult to do. And now Stephanie's losing her strength. This is when Stephanie rolls off of Teka, picks up a fireplace poker, and then hits Teka over the head at least a minimum of 40 times with a fireplace poker. And this is when Teka passes out. But she wakes up a few minutes after passing out, and all she can feel is Stephanie. She's got a hold of both of Teka's ankles, and Teka is being dragged across this apartment. Stephanie is dragging Teka into the kitchen, and while Teka is going in and out of consciousness, she hears rattling, like kitchen drawers are being shuffled through. She's hearing all of the utensils rattle about, and that's when she turns her head. She sees Stephanie coming down to her knees, sitting right up against Teka, and Teka feels the sharpest pain in her side. That is when she notices that Stephanie is dragging a box cutter up Teka's side. Blood is gushing out of Teka's side. She says that Stephanie now rolls off of her, gets on her knees in the blood next to Teka, and she is praying and rocking back and forth, and she is saying, "Oh God, forgive me. Oh God, forgive me." And at this point, Teka has absolutely no energy. She's in a state of shock. She's losing so much blood. She's been beaten over the head. She realizes that Stephanie's now cleaning the kitchen. Stephanie's just cleaning up all the blood surrounding Teka. And then she asks her, "Can you get up?" And Teka says, "No, I'm in pain. I cannot move." So this woman carries Teka to the bedroom. She puts the mattress on the bedroom floor, and she puts Teka on the mattress, and she takes Teka's phone away from her, and she turns it off. This is when Teka starts trying to become friendly with Stephanie. She starts talking about her family. She starts talking about Stephanie's family. She's trying to make Stephanie feel bad for what she has done, maybe scared for what she's doing. Teka's making it sound like, her family is going to want to know where she is. And they know that she was coming with Stephanie. So Stephanie's going to be caught. But it doesn't seem to face Stephanie. Like, Teka just cannot get through to this woman. So on this first night, Teka says that while she's trying to talk to Stephanie, Stephanie's just pacing back and forth, and she looks really nervous. Like, she doesn't know what she's doing. She's never done something like this before. So Teka's feeling like she might be able to get through to her. Teka starts to fall asleep. She is just exhausted. She's in pain. She wakes up the next day and Stephanie is still pacing back and forth. But this time Stephanie feels like she's more relaxed. And so Teka says, just kill me. The pain was unreal. Teka's basically begging for Stephanie to just put her out of her misery right now. And Stephanie just looks at Teka and says, I gotta get out of here. And that is what actually makes Teka believe, okay, this woman isn't going to kill me. But Teka knows what she looks like, and she knows where Stephanie lives. She knows what kind of car Stephanie drives. So she also knows that it is a high probability that this woman is not going to let her go. So Stephanie leaves the bedroom, and Teka is there alone. But after a while, Stephanie walks back in holding a bowl, a metal bowl filled with water and ice. And she's also carrying a rag over her shoulder. She's got 6 towels, 2 box cutters, a pair of scissors, and a knife. She takes a roll of duct tape and wraps it completely around Teka's face. She says she can't see, she can't breathe. Stephanie leaves a little tiny space for her to be able to breathe out of her nose. But the moment she puts that tape on her face, Teka can feel the cutting. And Stephanie starts cutting from Teka's pelvis all the way up. Teka's hands were tied and she is weak from the blood loss. And she couldn't move, so she just laid there and she took it. And she says that sometimes Stephanie would stop and she would go to the living room and use the phone. And she could hear Stephanie on the phone, but then she'd come back. And now this woman wasn't just shoving objects, sharp objects into Teka and just cutting straight up. No, she was taking her time. She was nipping at her skin. She was nipping through muscle. She was going so slow through every single layer of Teka's skin. And then she cuts Teka's bladder. And she did this thinking that it was her water sac. So she says to Teka, so all I have to do now is reach in there, take your baby. Do you want me to do that right now, or do you want to go to sleep? Teka says, I'm in pain. I just need a break. I need you to stop. I just need a break. And Stephanie says, all right. Now this whole time that Stephanie is doing this to Teka, she puts a DVD in, and it is Michael Jackson's movie, This Is It. And every time that the movie would stop playing music and dancing and it would just show Michael Jackson being interviewed, Stephanie would get up, she would get upset, she would go to the TV, she would rewind it back to the part where they're just dancing and singing, and she would turn it up really loud so that nobody in that apartment building could hear Teka if she screams. And just to give you a little example of what a badass Teka is, while Teka is telling her story on the show I Survived, she says, and you know what? I don't even like Michael Jackson, so this was even more torture. And it's just like, Teka is the type of woman that is just always looking for the humor and the good in a situation. And that just shows you how she was able to deal with this situation in this point in time. During this whole scenario where Michael Jackson is playing and her body is just being torn apart, Teka passes out. But she wakes up in the middle of the night and there is only a nightlight on, and she looks down to her side and there is Stephanie just laying on the floor in a fetal position. And this is when Teka thinks, I gotta get out of here. She's asleep. I gotta go. So Teka is just in so much pain. She grabs her stomach and she's trying to ease herself off of this mattress. And she gets up. She takes one step towards Stephanie. But as she does, that metal bowl that Stephanie had sitting by her filled with water, Teka smashes her wedding ring against that metal bowl. And she thinks, oh my God, this is when Stephanie's going to wake up. But she doesn't. Stephanie is still passed out. So Teka is on her elbows and her knees, almost in like a prayer position as she's trying to sneak out, but she stops for a minute and she starts praying to God. She's like, please give me the strength to get to that front door. Please give me the strength. So Teka stands up. She's got one leg over Stephanie and one leg on the other side of her. And all of a sudden, her stomach just starts gushing blood, and blood just pours onto Stephanie. And Stephanie doesn't move. She doesn't wake up at all. So Teka pulls her other leg over Stephanie and she just books it to the hallway. She's trying to get to the front door, but she's falling in the hallway because she's realizing exactly how much pain she's in, how dizzy she is. She is holding one hand under her stomach and then her other hand against the wall and just guiding herself to that front door. Teka gets every single one of those locks open, and as she's opening that front door, she hears a creaking noise, but she doesn't care. She slowly walks to the back of that apartment building, and that is when she just starts losing it and screaming for help. She's banging on everyone's doors, and no one's answering. Nobody's coming out to help her, and this, could possibly hurt her because Stephanie's going to hear this and come chasing her down the hall. And you know what? That is exactly what happens. Stephanie is like, oh my God, she got out. And Stephanie is running down the hallway. Stephanie reaches Teka, but at the same time, a man comes barreling out of his apartment. He's like, what the hell is going on out here? And he can't really tell that Teka is hurt because she's wearing a navy blue t-shirt. And so the blood isn't that obvious right away. But it is obvious that something is going on because Stephanie's now got her arms underneath Teka's arms. Teka's laying down. Stephanie's dragging Teka. She's telling the guy, just go away. Come on. She's having a nervous breakdown. She's crazy. I'll help her. Don't worry about it. Get out of here. But Teka's fighting back. She doesn't care. And all of a sudden, Teka's able to lift her own shirt up. She shows the guy, look at what she's done to me. And Teka says that the guy's face just turns completely white after seeing what was under Teka's shirt. And he just runs and says, I'm calling 911. And that is when Stephanie drops Teka. She falls to the floor and Stephanie just books it out of that apartment building. Stephanie just takes off. And now Teka's just laying there with no one to help her. And that's when she starts going in and out again because she's very dizzy. She's losing blood like crazy. And that is when she wakes up and she notices that the EMTs are there. The police are there. Teka is safe. Teka Adams was in that apartment for 4 days. She endured 4 days of this woman slowly cutting at her stomach to take her baby away from her. Now I want to note, this part isn't in the I Survived or many of the articles that I saw, but I did listen to the podcast Creep Time, which, by the way, that is a fantastic podcast. What a fantastic storyteller. But in that podcast, he does mention that Teka was seeing a man come in and out of the rooms often. And this man so happened to be Stephanie's son. Stephanie's son isn't really brought into this story because he was special needs. So in the end, her son wasn't charged with anything because they said he didn't have the mental capacity to understand what he was actually participating in. Teka is rushed to the hospital, and when she gets there, she is immediately in emergency surgery. She doesn't know anything that happened from the time she left that apartment building until the time that she wakes up in that hospital room, and the first face that she sees is her husband, PJ. And then a nurse walks into her room and she just says, I get so emotional, "You gave birth to an 8-pound, 2-ounce baby girl." Teka's baby girl was balled up in the top of her stomach, and she was not getting taken away from her mother. Teka and PJ named their baby girl Miracle, because it is a miracle that Teka and Miracle survived that day. And later that day, Stephanie Mills, but Stephanie Mills wasn't her real name. Her real name was Veronica Deramas. Veronica Deramas turned herself in, and she pleaded guilty to assault. But while on trial, Veronica said that this whole thing is a lie. Teka actually contacted her, and Teka wanted to sell her baby. So Veronica offered to pay her $5,000, and then she was going to perform the C-section on Teka in her apartment. But the day she went to pick Teka up, Teka said she already spent the money and she didn't want to go through with it anymore. So this is why Veronica kidnapped her. But when Veronica said this in court, Teka said that she actually jumped out of her seat to go just choke the life out of this woman. But Teka's father jumped on top of her and was like, "Calm down. It's okay." And that is what actually stopped Teka from attacking Veronica in court that day. Because, I mean, look at everything Veronica did to her, and now she's slandering her name in court. The real reason that Veronica did this is because she had a young boyfriend, and this boyfriend was not really willing to stay with her any longer. Veronica was the mother of about 5 children, and she couldn't really have any more kids. This guy wanted more children, and to get him to stay, Veronica faked a pregnancy. But as, the days went on, she realized, I don't have a baby, and I'm gonna need to get a baby. So Veronica Deramas was sentenced to 25 years to life. And Teka said, if that woman, and when that woman ever comes up for parole, Teka will be there every single time. She is not ever getting out of jail if Teka has anything to do with it. We are ending this Survivor episode with something that Teka said that I just find so amazing. It just shows what kind of woman Teka Adams is. Teka said, "I survived because of God and my support system. Like they say, God looks after babies and fools. And at that time, I had a baby and I was a fool." Stay safe and stay paranoid. Stay paranoid.